Hello and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by Maya that dives deep into stories across pop culture, plus gives you advice on creating your own. It's episode 206, and I'm your co-host, Nigel.
I am Tazziii, content creator and co-host.
And as always, we are bringing you interesting discussions with diverse voices, and to help us out today, as we sadly close out the end of a run with Arcane season 2, but it's still Arcane, so we'll enjoy talking about it, is artist and digital content creator Liza N Cooper, aka
Hi.
Siberian Lizard. Liza, welcome back to the show, sort of. You've not been on the podcast, but you have been on a different show with us.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Thank you for having me again.
Cool. No, I appreciate it. Lisa was last joined me on Casual Conversations with Comic Creators. We had that discussion in January. At some point, we'll have some clips up on our YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that. We're working on a more consistent output of clips from shows on YouTube. But that's coming as well. Also with us is we've got some both animation experts, so people who know what they are talking about. We have director at the Line Animation Studio, Wesley Louis. Wes, welcome back. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good, thank you. Just got my head down, been working, so thanks for inviting me back to talk about stuff animation and Arcane.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Always appreciate you joining us. So yeah, Wes was on our first chat about Arcane, so for season 1, and then also when we did Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as well. So yeah, just any high quality animation, we just give Wes a call apparently. So, and here he is. So thank you for that. And so for people listening, you can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. You can also send us your feedback and questions in several ways. You can send us a voice message on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us at studio77@mymatter.com, or take your pick of social media options. We are at mymatter on Twitter, at mymattertv on Instagram and TikTok, at mymatter.com on Blue Sky, because now that's an option, or at LifeOfWGamer on Instagram and TikTok, at Tazziii on everything else, including at tazzy.bsky.social on Blue Sky. We have a new website coming, so one of the main things we're going to be working on this year, as well as a new manga, which I'll touch on in a bit. Got a new website in the works. We've been doing some sort of behind the scenes work on the brand, so that's to come. Same as the Studio 77 Discord as well. So both will get a new look, but you can check out the website mymatter.com and also join the Studio 77 Discord. There's a link to it on the current holding website. So come chat with us, join the community, find out what's coming next for the brand as well. So speaking of, before we get to today's story discussions, let's update you with the latest from the Maya Matter universe. We have some news. So I think on our recent live stream, if you've seen the Studio 77 report, you will know this, or if you've been following us on social media as well. But our manga is done. Origins Against All Odds is done. It's with the printer. It's done. So it's been a slightly longer than expected journey, but the first Origins manga is done. It features Tazzii's character in the Maya Matter universe for a reflective, hope-filled manga about pursuing your creative career goals in the face of resistance from doubters and the world around you. So this is one that I hope will resonate with anyone on that creative journey, no matter what stage of it you're at. Tazziii has now read it, so that's something, because that was yeah.
Have you watched any of the clips from that yet?
I've seen some. I haven't seen all of it. I'm gonna have Laura edit, but I'm gonna get some clips for the event that we've got coming up, and then I'll have Laura do a proper job with it, and then see what comes out of it. But I've got some bits, and it's nice to know some things will hit with you. So got that. We'll have a, like I said, reaction video with Tazziii coming out at some point, and it's good to have a new manga that people can consume as well and get something from. I mentioned we do have an event coming up. So at the end of the week as we record, so Friday the 7th of March, we're doing what I'll describe as an intimate launch event. So we've got it's a very small space. So sometimes people say space is limited. and they don't really mean it, but we mean it. Space is a premium in this place. But we're working with the Japanese gallery Kensington to launch the manga, and hopefully it's something we do with future titles and do like, I don't know, like launch events, sort of smaller ones, larger ones, maybe do both double header kind of things. But we're going to be launching the manga and talking with some creatives. So we've got the creative team. So some of the creative team behind this story. So not just myself, but we've had a lot of young creatives input on like story and the narrative. We've also got a roundtable discussion. Tazziii will be moderating a roundtable with different creators across the creative spectrum. So we've got Miyuki Panda, content creator and business owner. We've got Janelle McCurdy, author, young adult author. And we've got Shazleen Khan, who is a comic creator and lecturer. So yeah, all different disciplines and talking about their creative journey and what sort of resonates with them from the themes of the book. So yeah, it should be good. But if you didn't catch it, we will record the roundtable and put that on YouTube as well. So hopefully you'll get to enjoy that as well. We have other events coming later in the year as part of the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign, which is our campaign promoting inclusion and diversity in the video games industry. So it's a yearly initiative, and each year we take a snapshot of 40 players and makers to showcase the representation that does exist as a way to hopefully inspire more diversity in future generations of diverse talent. So there's a lot of, I feel it's going to be in some ways a more difficult thing this year, it feels like, when it comes to diversity, but we will continue doing that. And then, yeah, a schedule of events. So at the moment, we're still in the planning phase and sort of pre-launch planning phase. So stick with us, looklikeagamer.com. Will be updated when things are ready to go. But yeah, we've got that to come in spring. We're also on Twitch, so we're continuing our Studio 77 activities. So that's our digital platform on Twitch where we host different shows with creative professionals and also play games for your amusement. So I mentioned Liza was my first guest this year for casual conversations with comic creators. So each month I'm speaking to a different comic creator about their journey and the work they do. Tazziii and I talk about the latest Maya Matter goings on in the Studio 77 report, and also talk like gaming news stories as well. And then we have Games Night, which is where, yeah, we just play games. We did Marvel Rivals, we did Fortune Avenue, and then we've got, actually, we're still TBC on the next ones. But yeah, just follow us on Twitch, and then you'll get to join in on that. And if you're a young, aspiring creative professional, or you know one, then check out the Maya Matter Showrunners Work Experience Program. So this is where we've been creating opportunities. I think we started this about a year ago, a year or just a bit over. Opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation. Got a couple highly motivated young people with us looking into sort of concept art for future stories, looking into sort of like brand direction and marketing, and putting some theory into practice. So yeah, it's good opportunity to take that next step. So if you're interested, email us showrunners@mayamatter.com and we will tell you more. So that is pretty much where we're at with the brand so far, this early stage in the year. So now you're all caught up with the Maya Matter universe, let's talk about some of the stories that we've been enjoying this week.
This is our chance to have a spoiler-free discussion about what stories people have been reading, watching, or playing. So we will start with our guest. Liza, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, I've mostly been binging Peppa Pig against my will, but I actually been enjoying it. I know people have a lot like to say, but I think it's really one of the great things, one of the better shows you enjoy as a young parent. um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of as an adult, as a grown up, I've been enjoying Severance. I don't know
Oh,
if you guys
nice.
watch that at all. It's really great. It's on Apple TV, and it's just a very kind of creative and surreal show about, I don't know, I want to say working in an office, but it's like, yes, no spoiler free, but it's like, it's really cool. I can definitely recommend it. And I think it's one of the best intros. The way it's shot, it looks like a miniature. It has like a weird kind of camera angle. I mean, it's OCG, but it's like the way it's kind of presented and stuff, and the sets and even like the camera movements and editing. There's like one shot, well, they made it as a one shot that looks just incredible. So if you're kind of really into filmmaking and really unusual stories, I can definitely recommend it. But yeah, unfortunately, I won't have that many suggestions, so it's gonna be Peppa Pig and Severance.
That is the biggest swing of like
Yeah, I
tonal
know.
shows I think we've ever had on the podcast.
This is my life right now.
Oh, that's yeah, no, I've seen season 1 of Severance. I need to get Apple TV again because there's loads of seasons I need to catch up on things.
I think I got it at Barclays. I know this is just like a separate,
Yeah,
not sponsored, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe if you bark with them, maybe you can get it free.
I've had a few free subscriptions
Just
from
ask a
them.
friend to sign in, and just never sign up.
Yeah. Wes, what about you? What stories have you been enjoying or not enjoying?
Yeah, I've been watching Severance. I think I've seen 3 episodes of season 2, so I'm still got like a ways to go. But it's like I'm like jumping in and out of stuff because I've been quite busy. But yeah, Severance like is really good. My siblings put me onto that one after bugging me for about a year to watch it. Jack Reacher, I'm watching that as well because I'm like I was a kid in the 80s and stuff, so all that kind of like big British like action bound sort of stuff like appeals to me. So I'm watching that. Dragon Ball Daima I just finished, which is I've got my thoughts about it, but it's really beautifully animated actually, so it was nice to kind of watch that. Invincible, I'm watching that as well.
Is that season 3?
I believe whatever the latest season is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's that. And I've started watching Scissor 7 as well, which is something I've been meaning to watch for a while. Really quirky show, like crazy, that has like actually some quite emotionally impactful kind of episodes as well. So I've just finished season 1 of that, so I'm on season 2. And yeah, I really want to try and get back into games. So I've got like loads of games just sitting there, like probably about 20 games that I haven't played because I've just been so busy. But I want to try and get into the Resident Evil series. So I think I'm going to start with that. So I'll start with like Resident Evil 3 remake and then go to 4 remake and then do 7 and 8 because I think the controls are different. So yeah, I want to try and start doing that in the next couple of weeks because it's been like normally I kind of like carve out about a year, like once or twice a year where I just play games for a few weeks. But I've just not been able to do it for the last year and a half or so because I've just been so busy. So yeah, that's it.
I can relate to that. It's like, yeah, I usually take the weekend and binge a game.
Yeah, it's like I'm having to choose between watching a few episodes of something and play a game. So I'm in my kind of series era at the moment. Oh, I've started watching Penguin as well, so I'm like halfway through that as well, which is
Oh, cool.
incredible. Like Colin Farrell.
I thought you said Pingu. Pingu.
Oh, no,
I was
no,
like,
no,
oh
no.
yeah, Pingu. I've been watching
Not that
Pingu.
Penguin, the other one.
No, never mind.
The adult penguin, not the
Yeah,
children's
sorry.
penguin.
It's really like like Colin Farrell's before. It feels like a real person. Like it's not him. Yeah, it's insane what he was able to do. I mean, I'm not from the States and stuff, so I don't know if the accent that he's got, like the regional accent that he's using, is super authentic. Someone from that area would have to tell you, but to me, I'm just like, this is nuts. How I'm not seeing him, I'm just seeing another person. He's that character, so it's really good, really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, I think he's won some awards for it as well, like his performance. So
nice. Cool. So I'm being nice and not listing absolutely every isekai that I've watched recently. Actually, I'm not listing any isekais that I've watched recently. Just know I am still watching quite a few, but I've decided to go for a nice range this time. So I finished Kiss Him, Not Me, which is a interesting anime. I might have brought it up last time. I'm not sure. I've now lost track as I'm talking about it. I'm like,
Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, cool. But yeah, it is a high school anime, but how do I talk about it without spoiling it? It's basically a romance anime, but the character that's being romanced is not interested and wants the romance to happen between the other people. It's the only way I can describe it. But yeah, it's funny. At first, I really wasn't sure about it, and then it just had me like cracking up. The main character is like a massive otaku and is trying to hide how how much of an otaku she is from everyone, but ultimately cannot help it. So it leads them into like these really funny situations. And then I have been reading the Apothecary Diaries manga because I cannot wait for each episode to come out. I'm getting really impatient, which is the first time I've actually done this with a series. But I just love it so much. I just want more of it. I just want more Momo. So absolutely obsessed with the Apothecary Diaries. And if I catch up with the manga and I'm caught up with the series, then I'll start on the light novel because I just need as much of it as I can get. And then, I watched A Man on the Inside on Netflix, which is by the creators of The Good Place, and has some of the same actors in it. And oh my god, it is so good. It is so hilarious. It's basically like the premise is about a guy who has no experience whatsoever, but essentially becomes a spy for a private investigator in an old people's home, in like a retirement home. And yeah, it's just so funny because he has no experience, so he has to kind of like get trained from the ground up. The requirement was literally like that they just needed someone who was old and able to use a mobile phone. That was like their bar. The bar was low. So it's just like this really beautiful story. Yeah, it's really good. I definitely recommend if you like a good meaningful comedy, then it's definitely one to check out. And then I watched the final season of Umbrella Academy, and oh my god, am I sad that it ended? Yes. Am I very satisfied with how it ended? Also yes. Because it had a finite ending. Like, it was complete, packaged, ribbon, literally like just there. Yeah, it was a very emotional final season. And my favorite character is still 5.
5. 5 is the guy.
5. This should have just been called 5. So good. Closely followed by Klaus, because
okay,
love Klaus.
Klaus went through some things.
He really went through some things in season 4. Wow, that was a roller coaster. Yeah, I really love the Umbrella Academy. It's such a good show. I feel like season 3 wasn't that good for me. It was a bit touch and go, but I feel like season 4 brings it back. It brings it back. Yeah, but really good show. I kind of want to start it from the beginning now. Now that I know what I know, I want to go back. Yeah, that's it from me. Nigel, what about you?
Yeah, so I'll pick up that Umbrella that you put down. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I've also been watching Umbrella Academy season 4. Yeah, so watching that, I feel similar to you actually. I thought season 3 is like one of those where I can, when I enjoyed it, but you could recognize that something's not quite off, is not quite at the level, but I enjoyed it. And season 4, I felt like satisfied. I always feel like stories, endings are part of the story. So even though it's sad that something ends, it gives that closure and everything to the characters. And I imagine like to the cast as well. Yeah, it's cool. And I just like seeing these characters. It's so dysfunctional. Leave it at just so dysfunctional. And I think there's some kind of satisfaction in watching a very dysfunctional family just be dysfunctional, but still like be there for each other as well. So
yeah, while also having superpowers.
Yeah, and I even mentioned the superpowers as well. So yeah, so watch that. I finished. Speaking of endings, I finished Blue Lock, the anime series. So I had a bit of a gap because the translations like stopped because I was watching it dubbed, and then apparently that already went so far and then stopped. But now they've got it. Not that I have a problem with sub, but it's just when you get used to one and it's like I don't want to switch like literally halfway through. So yeah, very very satisfied with that. I don't know, Tazziii, you started watching it, so I'll be interested to see how it goes for you. But yeah, just like it as a football fan, just like that representation, but also just this pursuit of like excellence, I guess. This just just journey to get better from a character, or I guess all the characters, but the main character who's maybe doesn't start off as the best but wants to be the best, and what does that mean in that pursuit. So it's very interesting, and I think I assume there's more to come at some point. I get the impression there's more to come, but not sure. So watching that, some interesting ones. So the Oscars were yesterday, which I didn't even properly recognize, but for the first time, well, not the first time, but it doesn't always happen. I watched an Oscar-winning film in a completely different language, speaking of subtitles. So I've also watched a film called I'm Still Here, which is like a historical drama, and it's completely in Portuguese, so it's set in Brazil, and it tells the story of a former congressman in the 70s. Rubens Paiva was basically kidnapped and taken away by the regime at the time, and it's about like his wife's story and the effect on the family. So it's weird because I went to see this with a friend, and he was like, because every so often like we'll go and see films because he's quite a big. So this is my friend who I mentioned when we saw Gladiator. He doesn't watch films below, what was it, below 7 or so on IMDb. But yeah, we went to see this because apparently he got more than 7. But I just went, I had no idea. He was just like, this is a film, it's on. He said to me, he messaged me and said, it's subtitled, are you okay with that? And I wrote back to him, I said, clearly you don't talk to enough people who watch anime, because that is not a problem for him. So it's a heavy film. It's very good, very captivating, and very much captures the time. Like it feels like so authentic. Like it feels like you're there, and it's just a camera. Sometimes when like Hollywood films, they do like a period piece, you can feel the costumes, if that makes sense. This is like just camera on, you're in the 70s. It just feels so authentic. And yeah, the journey of like that this family, this man, his wife like go on is, it leaves something on the end. It's one of those films where you're left thinking about what you've seen at the end. And it won the Oscar for Best International Feature Film as well at the Academy Awards. It's very good, very, very heavy and very like meaningful. Also another Oscars nod, because I mentioned earlier in the year that I'd seen A Real Pain, film by Jesse Eisenberg, and I predicted that Kieran Culkin will win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and he won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. If you haven't seen that film, that's a really good film. I've never felt so seen in the film, and always for a good reason. But his performance was fantastic. Anyway, that was a previous show. Last thing I will say is Blue Eye Samurai. So has anyone seen this?
Yeah, that's incredible. Blue Eye Samurai.
There you go. You took the words right out of my mouth, so you know where this is going. That, it's incredible. It's there's certain things, particularly when it comes to animation, and I feel accurate for the story we're going to be talking about, that kind of elevates from entertainment to art, and it's just this is art. This is like the best expression of the given medium that this thing is doing, and I feel like Blue Eye Samurai is an example of that. So it's that kind of I don't know, samurai goes on a journey and for reasons, but the animation quality, the level of like maturity in the storytelling, it's definitely adult for multiple reasons, but it's so good. And the character journey is so, I don't know, it's just so meaningful. And I'm trying to like dance around like what without spoiling, but I would say it feels like you really feel for the character, and there are some amazing like sequences, set pieces, choreography in the action scenes. But I don't know if you found this ways, but sometimes you see like cool action and it's like, oh, like visually that's great. I had that, but then I also couldn't necessarily enjoy it fully because there's such sadness in the character and such a heaviness that it was cool. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but it was cool. But it was like, this character is there's so much going on there that I'm always considerate of that. I don't know if that even makes sense in what I'm trying to say, but without giving away spoilers.
I think what you say, I kind of see your point, because the fighting in it, weirdly enough, has like a it's not pretty. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
violent.
Yeah.
It's similar to like The Last of Us in that even though that game's a lot of fun to play, there is like a bit of a tactileness or like a realism that
Yeah.
you almost feel a bit guilty in what you're engaging in.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like
I
because
mean,
you feel for the character, or you understand like
yeah, like when I look at something like Arcane, and it's not a criticism, it's just like the fighting in it. It looks so cool, like with the moves and the shots and stuff, and all the 2D effects and stuff. So it's like really really enjoyable to watch. Like it's very hard for me to watch watch Arcane without rewinding it. Like how did they do that? That looks sick. Like something. Whereas with this one, there is something emotional about the fighting that makes you like, that must hurt, or that. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
I do know what you mean. It's not something I've thought about, but as you've said it, I'm like, no, that's actually true. You know, when I watch that.
When you think, yeah, so the character journey and everything, just you can't separate it from the action. You can't separate, or I couldn't separate the character journey and what they were going through with the very cool action sequence. But watch it, basically, it's art. It's art. I feel it's fantastic. It's weird. It's like it's almost because it's got that samurai feel, but it's, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like Western produced, so it's not an anime, but it's a different kind of style. But then also, if you squint at some points, it looks like a Disney animation.
Yeah. It's the style of it's interesting because I'm going to be honest. When I first saw the trailers, I wasn't really interested because it's not that I don't like Disney. It's just that like sometimes I like if a style doesn't maybe match, at least in my mind, doesn't feel like it matches the subject matter, which is a me problem, not a them problem. I can be put off. But then my brothers told me about it, but I'm thinking, oh, you watch everything, so like you know. But then one of my like some of my friends were telling me about it, people who don't necessarily watch animation, like so people outside of what we're into, like animation comics. They're watching. Have you seen this anime? This is what they call it. Have you seen this anime called Samurai? And I'm like, it's not anime because like
it's not anime. Yeah.
I'm taking stuff which doesn't matter, but it is technically it is anime because that's what it means. But like, so when they started telling me about it, and I watched it. Like the style of it. First of all, I think the style of it really works with what it is, and secondly, it just didn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It was like it's so well. The story is so well told, so like shocking, so mature and stuff. The style almost becomes secondary, and like the animation and all that kind of stuff as well. Because I think, especially in my position, like sometimes you can look at stuff and you're like, oh, they could have held that frame a bit longer, and you start to kind of analyze it from a technical perspective, which I have to like sometimes actively turn off my brain when I'm watching stuff. Just try to enjoy it because.
Sure.
But with this one, it's like the moment it started, I was just into it. I don't even remember thinking about. I must have done it because I do this, but like I was looking at the scenes in terms of like the choreography, not how it was animated, but like how interesting some of the fight scenes are and how.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it in terms of, oh, that's an interesting camera, and wow, like. So I'm almost thinking about it like live action as opposed to.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole episode on that. Is just fantastic. So impressed with that. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. That's my long list of things. Cool. All right, let's get to another. Speaking of animation, that is on such a high level. Let's get into today's main discussion. Today is a retrospective on Arcane, specifically season 2, but I imagine we'll kind of like is all of a piece. So Arcane is an action-adventure animated series created by Kristen Link and Alex Yee, produced by the French animation studio Fortiche under Riot Games' supervision for Netflix. The series is set in the League of Legends universe, which I've still yet to play, and the first season aired in November 2021. Which for some reason I was like, didn't it just come out last year? But 2021. And the second and final season was released in November 2024. So spoiler alert, we are now going to talk in depth about all the things. So if you haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life? Go and watch Arcane. I literally tell like some of the young people when we do, even the young people that worked with us, or like if we go and do talks in colleges and stuff and people doing art, like, have you watched Arcane? If the answer is no, like, you go and watch Arcane, and if you don't learn anything from it, then just stop, because I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you will learn. But yeah, anyway, that's my sage advice to the younger generation. But yeah, go watch it, come back to us and join the discussion. So I will do a brief recap of the story. But before I do that, let's get everyone's quick takes and general impressions. So Liza, start with you. What was your overall impression of the Arcane season 2?
I loved it. I'm gonna be very biased.
No, it's just
Yeah.
preaching to the choir probably, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I think like when we spoke last time, I was like, I really want to do Arcane. I love the first season. I love the second one. I mean, I know it's obviously nothing is without its flaws, but I really love the series. I love the style. I love, as an animator, I love all the little things they put in very subtle ways, like the different techniques they use. How gorgeous it was to look at visually. I know we'll get onto it, but I love how fast paced it was. I think it like treats its
Mm,
audience. I don't know, like the visual language it uses, it's very kind of fast and unforgiving. So you kind of have to rewatch it if you didn't get the first time. So it's
mm,
almost like looking at a puzzle. And I do really, really like that. I know it's not for everyone, obviously. Some people might think it's a bit too fast or has kind of a pacing issue, whatever. What do they know? I'm just kidding. Yeah, but I just really, really loved it. So I'll probably come from that perspective.
okay.
I'm obviously gonna recognize it's not flawless, even though I will probably not think that. But yeah, I just love the characters, settings, the world building, the animation, everything about it.
Cool. All right. No, it sounds good. And Wes, how about yourself? And also, because like Wes, you're from the line, and you guys have done like stuff with Riot in terms of like music videos and stuff. So I guess is there also like a very extra critical eye you look at this with? Are you like I wouldn't have done that?
Uh, yes and no. I can try and look for things wrong with the animation and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
it'd be
Good luck. Yeah.
super nitpicky. Like that is, it's just like I think between Spider-Verse, well, actually specifically Alberto Miogo and what Fortiche are doing, I think they're doing stuff like I think they're like some of the best on the planet. Like honestly, I think it's yeah, the character designs are amazing. The backgrounds and stuff are incredible. The sequences is how creative they are with stuff, how believable the characters move and how they feel. Like it's the type of thing that just doing what I do, it makes you just question like what you're actually doing, because I'm like I don't know how they're hitting the levels. And we've done, like you said, we've done some League of Legends stuff. We worked on a few music videos, well, for Riot Games specifically. So I've done some stuff with Valorant as well. And I know the first season of Arcane, when we were like kind of coming up, like we got like quite a big job from Riot, because 4Teachers are working on Arcane, and then we got like a music video. So it was the True Damage one, where it was like alternative skins for like Echo and Akali and a couple of the other characters. So Fortiche did the why have I forgotten the name of the video now? It went super viral. It was a K-pop song. I know it's got Akali in it and a few of the characters, but it was like it will come to me. But yes, they did that video, so that was, even like trying to follow that was like really big shoes to fill, because it was incredible. So I don't know. These guys have been going for a long time, and they're just experts at the game. And I've yet to. Some of the team have met them in Annecy, but I've yet to meet them. I really want to meet them and stuff, because I think they're incredible, and I look up to them a bit. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I've got I have like with in terms of story or the way it ended. I don't know if I want to say I have issues with it, because I also understand that like it felt. I don't know if rush is the right word, but it kind of like
It's a word I've seen
really
used.
quickly, and it feels like they could have done with at least 2 more seasons, right? But having said that, you just never know what's going on behind the scenes. Like plans change, like the company's ambitions might have changed. I don't know, but even having even said all that, I would still like love to when I get the chance, sit down and watch the whole thing again. I watched season 1 again.
Me too.
I just kind of like sat there, had it on in the background. I just ended up watching the whole thing. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts on it.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, we'll definitely get into a lot of that of what you said. Tazzy, let us know your thoughts. I know we're all very big fans. Season 1. Where do you land on season 2?
Season 1 was definitely better. This was still great though. I would say I feel like it's just got like a different feel to it because it felt like fractured is the word I would describe it.
Okay, interesting.
Whereas like season 1 felt very like here's act 1, here's act 2, here's act 3. Like it felt very, I don't know, like structured in that, like the story, I don't know how to describe that. Whereas this felt way more fractured, but that kind of worked with what was happening in the story. But it definitely gave more of like how cyberpunk
Okay. 2077.
Edrunner.
No, that's the game.
How Edrunner was like a bit like chaotic and fractured. It gave more of that vibe. But I thought it was really good. There was a lot of like moments where it was just like really deep and emotional, and like again, like the music, the way the music and the animation work together, like there's just something so beautiful about that. And I also feel like this was a show about a video game. Like I feel like the video game started to bleed in to this, whereas the first season was like, this is a story at a TV show. And if you had no idea it was a game, you wouldn't know. But like, there's a lot of things that started to feel like a game and feel definitely like League of Legends in there. Like it was like, this is bleeding into game.
All right, we've got a lot to talk about. All right, so we're good. So yeah, for me, I kind of agree with everything that everyone said, and I think when season 1 ended and we knew there was a season 2, even at that moment, and this would have been in 2022, I was like, all right, we're going to do that, and then I already know what I'm going to say because season 1, for my money, is just like an absolute masterpiece. So season 1 is flawless for me, and it's just fantastic. And then I guess I was expecting the same for season 2. And what I'm going to say, I guess it sounds like a criticism. So I want to kind of context this and, you know, this is fantastic. This is such like high level and so fantastic, but it's not flawless. And we'll get into why, at least I think that as well. But what it made me think of, and it's might be a bad comparison for some if you've seen it, there's a point where I started thinking about Game of Thrones and the final season of Game of Thrones, and what will be sad for me, as I found sad for Game of Thrones, because for anyone who's watched the final season, and some would say season 6 as well, but definitely the final season, where the drop off in quality, and I'm not saying Arcane has that big a drop off, so let me say that I'm definitely not saying that at all. But for me, the biggest sin of season 7 of Game of Thrones is that it made people then disregard everything that came before. And again, for my money, like Game of Thrones, let's say, yeah, I'll give you season 6 up for 1 to 5. It's like fantastic, like just fantastic storytelling, just fantastic in its own right, but also stuff that not been done, at least on a TV screen at that scale at that time. I always look back, like it's a shame that people go, Game of Thrones, season 7 was terrible, therefore the whole thing is terrible, and it's just not the case. And I started to think about that with Arcane, not necessarily for myself, but when I started seeing some of the criticism online. And I hope like that doesn't happen where people go, season 2 wasn't as good as season 1, therefore it was just okay. This is fantastic. Like Arcane is fantastic. And I think both seasons, again, going back to my sort of young person advice, like you could just learn something from so much from both. And I just hope that, yeah, it just doesn't go like, it was okay, because this is not just okay, this is fantastic. So let me say that, but not flawless. And we'll get into some of why I think that as we go. So yeah, I'll do a quick recap or just an overview of the story, because obviously we're talking about like seasons here. So Arcane, set in the world of League of Legends, the series explores the mounting tensions between the wealthy, technologically advanced city of Piltover and its impoverished, criminal-ridden neighbor Zorn. At the heart lies the story of sisters Vi and Powder, whose lives are forever changed by the socio-political conflict between the two cities. So season 1, and we've done an episode on season 1, which you can check out. So it introduces us to the sisters' journey, culminating in Powder's transformation into the unstable Jinx after a series of tragic events. And the season ends with Jinx launching a devastating attack on Piltover's council using stolen hex tech technology. So season 2 expands the scope of the narrative and deals with like the immediate aftermath of Jinx's attack. The series delves deeper into the darker aspects of the characters as open conflict between the cities becomes inevitable. Jinx struggles with her identity and the consequences of her actions, while her sister Vi attempts to navigate her complex loyalties between Piltover and Zorn, and their relationship becomes increasingly strained as Jinx's actions threaten any hope of peace between the two cities. So yeah, so the animation we mentioned, Fortiche production, and directors Pascal Charroux and Arnaud Delord. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those names right. Executive producers, I mentioned Christine Link, Alex Yee, Mark Merrill, Brandon Beck, and an extensive voice cast: Haley Steinfeld, Ella Purnell, Katie Lung, Kevin Alejandro, Harry Lloyd, and more. We've got a list somewhere there, but it's very good cast. All right, so yeah, let's get into it. The other thing to mention, just off the this is great, is that it has won a ton of awards. So I won't list all of them, but it's won like Annie Awards, 9 of those, character animation, character design, direction, Emmy Awards, outstanding animation program, the Game Awards, best adaptation as well. And Tazziii, you kind of like touched on it. Why do you think season 1 worked so well for like both fans and non-fans of the game, the existing lore, at the same level, it seems?
I think because the story structure, for one, was just like very well structured, like a very clearly structured story. I don't know. Don't know what. And also like you all came along for the journey of understanding. You didn't need to know anything beforehand to understand. Like I have no idea about League of Legends. Like I mean, I like understand some basic things about League of Legends, but I definitely don't really know like any characters or like the lore behind it. And it just made sense. It very clearly outlined what was going on. It let you know what was happening. And I feel like for existing fans, it gave a dive into characters they already care about. So yeah, I just feel like because of that, it just struck a really good balance. And it was just incredible storytelling. So no one can deny incredible storytelling.
Yeah, no, true. Yeah, and then like for everyone as well, as we go into like delving into season 2, just wonder what were your expectations, like either narrative wise or character wise. Yeah, what expectations did you have going into season 2? I know Tazziii, you don't necessarily always do expectations, but maybe Liza and Wes, did you have any expectations going into this? What did you want to see?
I don't think I had any real expectations. Like I guess the expectation, if anything, is just, well, how are they going to top the first one? Do you know what I mean? How are they going to like keep the that same energy, the visual like fidelity, the story, and all that kind of stuff? That was the only thing I was thinking. But I haven't, like I said, I have not seen anything that Fortiche has done. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Like everything they do, just at least definitely from a visual perspective, just looks incredible. So and it was the same with this. Like I said, I think maybe some of the pacing at the end maybe felt a little off, as in like some things happened where, I was like, oh, like I didn't know. Wait, when did that happen? When did she get that?
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, or it's not so much you don't know when it happened, but it felt like you never spent enough time with it because it had to move on to the next thing and the next thing to wrap everything up. So, and again, that they started off this thing with such a big story, and I did read somewhere they were supposed to have like do 2 or 3 more seasons or something. So it felt like the way it started, like they had a big arc to go through, and it felt like, I don't know, maybe external sources or like, whatever. I have no idea what it is, but it felt like, all right, they had to kind of find a very clever way to try and get all this stuff done and wrap it up. So, because they definitely
Yeah.
think about, especially in the fact you can definitely feel that they really thought about the characters and stuff. And the
Yeah, of
characters
course.
a lot more fleshed out in the first season, but that's because there was time, The moment you start to constrain things and you have to wrap up things quite quickly, then it becomes like harder that stuff in. So, any expectations as such, I can't, none off the top of my head, apart from, well, it's 4T, so when they do stuff in back,
And yeah, for you, Lisa, is that how
Well,
did you feel?
I try to set my expectations very low, and I don't know if it's because whether it is I worked in industry and or I find that a lot of like big companies, they don't sometimes. I mean, I know obviously we all work in animation. I know everyone has respect for animation, but like sometimes companies like Netflix, especially, I heard they like layoffs and stuff like that. They had loads of animation projects planned, and then suddenly they canceled them. I was like, oh my god, I know this series did well, but are they gonna actually go big on the next one, or they're gonna cut the budget, cut everything, and it's just
Right.
gonna be like kind of a money making thing, and they're gonna just either drag it out or cut in certain elements. It's like I didn't know that they're gonna go big. Like I kind of reserved my expectations because with BoJack Horseman and stuff like that, it's not like they. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's got like it obviously has great seasons, but it's like they cancel a lot of good shows and they've
Yeah.
cut budgets on a lot of good shows that I thought were amazing. Not obviously to the level of Arcane's, but I really didn't want to set my expectations really high and be very bitterly disappointed because I felt like I had a lot more to lose here. But I'm really glad that they kind of had a huge budget for this, and really at least financially, maybe they didn't give it kind of a time, but financially they seem to have given it the breadth and the resources that they needed to make something really kind of, at least artistically, maybe we won't agree on the pacing and stuff, but artistically looking something that will inspire generations, and we'll look back and we can analyze like the frames and the techniques used and like the breakthroughs in the stylization and stuff. It's been very interesting. Yeah, I say my expectations were low, but I forced myself to have low expectations.
Rotations. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that I did not do that. My expectations went, and I don't usually do this. It might be like the one thing where I just like, yep. In my mind, I was like, there's no way you can do that. And if you're gonna let them do more, that it just can't be like that or better. So I was like, yep.
You haven't had your heart broken yet.
Yeah, no, and like I said, yeah, it's not necessarily flawless, but it's a fantastic like piece of work. And I guess I wanted to get into I wanted to go into the pacing because I felt that from as I was putting the notes together and just like my own thoughts as well, that was like for me the one thing where if you're gonna attack it, you can attack it. So I was like, okay, let's get into that and we can dive into what makes it amazing. But yeah, so I think for me, like as I was watching, because it starts off like a house on fire, and I remember thinking back to my feelings as I was watching it. I love the way it started, the pace of it, because so it picked up right like the series 1 ends as Jinx hits the council, and then series 2 picks up like right there with the aftermath of that hit. And I remember thinking that the first episode of season 2 ends like the last episode of a season. And it was just like, look, just full on. And I really enjoyed that. But then I guess, and I'm thinking of this like as a like story creator, I guess you also need those moments of like slower pacing to build up the character arc or whatever for the next bit. And it's that balance, because from there, I think Wes, you kind of touched on it. There's things that happen where I'm trying to think of some earlier moments in at least those first 3 where things are introduced and you're like, yeah, you just maybe I haven't spent much time. Definitely like the magical side of it, and then later on as the anomaly started, I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to feel about this, but stuff's happening and on to the next thing. Yeah, I don't know. For you guys, where did you see if you saw pacing issues? Because it's also interesting to hear, Lisa, like you say, you enjoyed the pace of it. Actually, let's dig into that a bit more, because you saw like that the pace that things moved, and you're like, yeah, this is what worked for you. Why did that work for you in particular?
I mean, don't think people probably will not be able to tell. I'm a bit of a hyper person, like can be quite active. So I find it, I mean, I don't know if it's a kind of a generation thing. I don't even watch TikTok that much, but yeah, I think I do like when things kind
You're
of
like 30
change.
seconds, next thing, let's go.
Yeah, no, the thing is, I don't actually. Don't even have TikTok on my phone. Like I post in it, but I don't actually watch it. But I do like things. Like I've always had like kind of a shorter-ish attention span. So I do enjoy kind of things where I can catch things and rewatch things several times. So for me, it almost feels like a puzzle. Like I do like things that capture all of your attention and don't stretch things out. Because I find with Netflix, a lot of series just get really stretched out. It's more apparent when you watch like cinematic things. Because
Mm.
obviously on film it's much easier. I don't think people would ever be that as wasteful of animation. I don't know. Me and Wes know how much it costs to make every second, so you would
Yes.
never want to just, have kind of pointless things. But then again, even animation, like they do have like kind of I don't know, dialogue or, kind of things like that. Sometimes they had Netflix is guilty of that sometimes, just having monologues or things like that, where it's just one frame. So
Right.
I found it refreshing that it was so fast paced, but it's not just that. It's like there wasn't really like any kind of nothing felt wasted. It's like everything kind of felt very purposeful and intentional. Obviously, I did find some things a bit confusing. So for me, if I had to say one thing that was very difficult was the Black Rose. Was
Yeah, no, I
it or
agree.
like it was so hard to follow. It was out of kind of nowhere, and I don't know if I needed to know more about it. I don't know if it was in the games because I tried to look into it, and I don't know. It just felt very strange, and obviously it led to
Mm.
like a really cool thing transformation. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow, new outfit for the character. I'm a sucker for like a magical girl transformation. Just feels always really cool. Which, like how do you sneak that into such serious thing? You're like, oh, it's a Sailor Moon moment for one of my favorite characters. Anyway, but yeah, that whole thing just felt very confusing, especially towards the end. I kind of couldn't even understand what the character like when I first watched it. I was like, what? So what happened? Why did this happen? So yeah, that part felt a bit, rushed. But everything else, it did feel like where they kind of didn't have time to slow down, they used different animation techniques. I don't know if so there was an episode about where they went back in time.
Yes, Echo
They used
and
different,
Hamidega.
yeah. Because I was like, oh, it's really interesting. Like the animation is really slowed down. The dancing there is actually made on like 4 frames, I think, a second, and it's
I will
exactly the
agree with
time.
you because you sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I looked into it because I was like I didn't actually count it. I probably should have, but it looks like it's very slow, and it felt like it's the 4 seconds that Echo can rewind. Is he can rewind the time? So I think
Yeah,
it's four
yeah.
seconds. Just trying to remember. I should have probably made a note of that. But
Is
it's
I
the
think
four
yeah, I think
seconds
you're right.
probably rewinding in his like memory. The 4 seconds with powder, and I was like, it's to me that felt like oh, kind of if you get it, you get it. But I'm not saying that to be like smug or anything, but it's just like, it's kind of, I feel like, oh, even subconsciously, you kind of get that slowing down of time. It almost feels like a memory. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's not just technically for people who like, oh yeah, with animation, we know this is like 4 frames a second or whatever frames a second. It's also like, visually, it really works. So I did enjoy these kind of moments where even though they were constrained, they were put in this box of like, you tell story at the quickest pace possible. They kind of found ways to make it very creative and very interesting and visually, And I did feel like there were a lot of kind of not quiet, I suppose, moments, but a lot of moments where like there was a lot of setting shots or like almost like paintings. I guess where the first season felt more like, I don't know, more storytelling. This one almost felt like, very old paintings. I don't know, like when you go to national history, no, national history, national
Like
gallery.
gallery. Yeah.
Yeah, you see those big paintings, and then a lot of it like tell story. That's how I kind of felt sometimes watching that. That you almost get a story from just looking and pausing it. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea. So I did, and I enjoyed that it's because it's for art, because it's for more like older, I guess, audience. It must be because it's violence. It doesn't treat audience kind of like it doesn't break down the story too much, and it doesn't slow down too much for people to be like I guess, or over explained. I think it's also on account of me having watched too much Peppa. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. Okay. I
Being
guess Daddy and
conditioned.
Mommy Pig are going to the shop.
Yeah,
Here, I
yeah,
didn't feel like I had to be explained. It's like, yeah, this character's doing this. I got
yeah.
it.
Fair
So yeah,
enough.
this is my impression. So I'll let Wes and Tazzy share this as well.
Yeah. I mean, Wes, did you notice anything in terms of like in the impact of the pacing, like for you, where did that like land for you in terms of, oh, I noticed this in the story and it feels like a pacing issue in particular, like we mentioned, like the Black Rose and
All right, yeah. It was the Black Rose and how oh my god, I cannot remember her name. When she ends up being is it a mage or sage?
Oh, Mel.
Yeah, so that to me almost came out of it felt like it came out of nowhere. Now, having said that, I probably would. I know they probably because I did watch some like other like explainer videos as well. I think just before the apparently just before the rocket hits that Jinx sets off, her back glows and you see the armor. So that's why her and Chase was it Chase?
Jace. Yeah, because he comes out unharmed.
Yeah, they both come out unharmed because of apparently it's because of her armor because they kind of have a few frames just before it hits. She kind of glows up, so that kind of I think at the end of the first episode, it kind of foreshadows something is different with her. But again, I didn't remember that, so maybe that would have been enough if I watched the whole thing again. Maybe it's enough. But having said that, now I've got the sort of I've seen it once already, so I know what to expect. So I don't know if it would be fair. But when that came, it just it did catch me off guard. I was like, oh wait, what? Like she can. Wait, who's this? Who's
Yeah,
this? Who are these people? Like, do you know what I mean? So, but this is what I'm saying. It's like it just feels like I think that what they've done it is actually quite masterful in the sense of right, guys, we've got to wrap this up. We've got a lot to do, and they're making choices to make that happen,
yeah.
which I think is really really impressive. Actually, it's impressive when you do a lot with a little, even though I mean they didn't have a
They
little.
got a lot. Yeah.
I'm understanding
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
I
they might
honestly,
have the most actually, but yeah.
yeah, I honestly feel like it's almost like ending Game of Thrones in season 2. That's where almost it's like if you do Game of Thrones 1, right, cool, then you do season 2, and they have to end it at season 2.
That's that's a lot to pack in.
Yes, and it's almost an impossible. I mean, any series really. Like if you've got like a series that runs for like 5 seasons and stuff, you need to see it through, right? Like The Wire doesn't work without the 5th
No, you
season.
need all of them. Yeah,
If it ends at 2, you're going to feel a little bit like almost blue ball or something because it's
yeah.
oh,
Is this
like,
it?
yeah, like where's the rest? So I did have that feeling of,
Okay.
oh my God, it's over already. Do you know what I mean? And they're not going to make any more. So yeah, so I understand just being on the other side of stuff as well. Like sometimes, when I used to watch stuff or engage with like animation or any media, but like, why did they do that? Oh, they should have done this. They should have done that. But then being on the other side of it, you're like, people are going to complain, but we've got no choice. The people or the time, or we don't have the resources, etc. Like, just even being a director myself, when you're doing something, there's so many things you want to put in it. The schedule, the production doesn't allow for it, so you have to be smart with what you have and do the best that you can. So, and I don't even think I'm not even leveraging this as a criticism to them. It's just you can just feel it. Like some things,
yeah.
when you watch a film and you see articles where they're talking about, oh, they did rewrites and they did this and they did that, and you watch the film, you're like, oh, I can feel that. I can feel something was taken away from the director, or there was a constraint, or whatever is in that. So, but again, having said all that, I still loved it. You know what I mean? I still want to watch it again. So,
and I feel that's good insight because I mean, we just did a comic and very much smaller scale and a minuscule percentage of the budget. I can tell you that, but there's still like a limit because the final story is like 34 pages, and that was increased because it was going to be like 20, I think 28 or something, and it just needed a few more. But there is a budget, and we've got to stick to and time as well. And then you start making decisions, and that's the point. I feel any story, even the ones that you feel are perfectly paced or whichever. It's like there's decisions like what are we going to put in and what are we going to leave out, And I guess in the reason I wanted to bring this up first, it's almost like we're making excuses. I guess we are, because it's still great, but just to give that perspective, because sometimes I see criticism and, it's always hard to tell tone from like text and comments online and stuff, but it almost feels like sometimes I feel people are like, oh, these creators, whether it's this or a game, sat in a room and said, how can we screw over the viewer or the player? How can we make everyone? They don't do that, but you have to make decisions on what goes in, and especially with external stuff like Wes sort of touched that's potentially happening. So it's just that understanding. But then as viewers, as consumers of it, I feel like all humans understand story on some level, maybe more some than others, but you can feel it. You can feel when something's off. And like, I know, Tazziii, you're particularly like, what's the keen senses to like things that could work or not. So yeah, was there anything in terms of like impact that you felt particularly like, oh, I can feel something here?
Oh gosh, okay. I guess like was it kind of like in the middle? Okay, yeah, there was a couple of points. So there was like the point where Jace and the professor guy and
Victor or Heimerdinger
and skateboard guy
Echo.
My descriptions of them. Like when they went into the big room, I'm going to call it a server room because that's what it makes me think of.
The magical server room.
The magical server room and the organic rune that they come across. So they touch that, and then we just lose them. But like, it's not like it feels like a big thing like was missed there. Because then when we Jace again, he's like aged, and then it just feels like there was meant to be something else there, and like I feel like that's the first point that I felt like it was fractured. And then it felt like from then on there just seemed to be a lot of points where there was like these big jumps of like, okay. And then I had no like concept of time, as in like where in the timeline is this happening? Because there's some points where I was like, have we gone to the past? Is this happening before that other bit that happened or after that bit that happened?
So it felt like disjointed.
Yeah, from that point, I would say it was like the thing. And then like as I was watching it, I was like, some of it really works really well with the storyline, but at some points it was like, okay, wait, let me just catch up.
Slow down.
Let me get a piece of paper out and like just draw some lines.
Draw these lines, yeah. Get that red string out, like what?
Yeah, and then I think even like with Vi, like there was she just got like left in the below, and we just didn't see her. I was like, what happened there? And then we eventually do, but it felt like that was like a quick, because it was just like the montage to like let you know, and that was a great montage, it was very good, but it felt like there should have been other bits there. And then yeah, I feel like there was a lot of points that I was like, oh wait. And then definitely like later on, when specifically when Jinx was in the prison, oh my god, the animation at that point was so good, with her, like her hair, and she was looking all disheveled, and it was like, we've never seen her like that. We've seen her broken, but not
that was fully
a shell. Yeah, like that was like broken and extracted. Anyway, but there was that point, there was a bit that was like, I feel like something's missing, but it also just, yeah, like things did still make sense and pull together, but it did feel like there was just like maybe, you know, like when you put a puzzle together and you've got a couple of missing pieces, but it doesn't actually damage it. Like you still
get the picture.
You still get the picture. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like what Wes was saying about just the ability to pull something together and make it work narratively is impressive. And yeah, I still think it's impressive, but obviously we want to like talk about the different aspects and give people that perspective when it comes to like storytelling. I think for me, I would say the bit I was disappointed to sort of lose was that conflict between Piltover and Zorn, because we kind of had it at the beginning and then we didn't really get to see it again, like fully delve into it. Well, to be fair, there were points, but I just didn't feel enough time because the first season was like, it was all about that and that representation from like Silco and Vanda, different sides of that. And then we get like the top side as well. And I really enjoyed that. And we sort of lost some of that fitting in some of the other aspects of the story. I came across this quote on Reddit, which I feel summed up the challenges, but also maybe the impact. Someone said, we went from curing a crackhead to utopia to hive mind in 3 Victor scenes. I was like, yeah. Yeah, fair enough. We did, but yeah, by right, we got the picture. So the other aspect is like we've spoken about like the world building. I think Tazziii said like you felt like the game, and I feel similar. So this was me. Where wait, has anyone played League of Legends here?
No, I wanted to, and I was posting about the first season in my stories. I think I
Yeah.
was pregnant, and I've got such a strong response to not do it. I don't know what it is about League of Legends, and apparently all of them players hate themselves.
Right. Okay.
And a
I've
lot of
heard this.
Yeah.
players, I don't know what it was, but like everyone's like saying, no, it will suck. You're like, it will take your life. And then my sister wrote
Wow.
to me, she was like, I just broke up with a guy who was a League of Legend player. Do not do it. I was
Oh
like,
wow.
I don't know what it is. I'm sure not all League of Legends players are like
Yeah.
that. But it was
Okay.
just surreal. I was like, okay. Well, I made me more curious, but then I was like, I don't actually have that
Maybe
much
not.
time. Everyone says it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
very time consuming. I
I
don't know.
definitely don't have.
I can assume that Wes hasn't because it is time consuming, but I don't know.
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't. I probably the type of games I like are like a single campaign narratives, not open world unless it's Spider-Man, then I'm fine because I like swinging around the city. But any yeah, my sort of game is like I just like single campaigns with a
Mm.
really strong story, beginning, middle, and end, where I don't have to go back and do lots of stuff. And League of Legends isn't that.
Yeah.
I think the
Amen to
first
that.
yeah, I mean, before we directed, it's weird. I probably know more about League of Legends than I should because of the things that we directed and some
I
of
guess
the
yeah, you
pitches,
have to, right? Yeah.
yeah, some of the pitches that we've engaged in and stuff and all that kind of. So even like just seeing Echo, I did a lot of research on Echo, just simply because we had to feature him in one of our videos, like him turning back time and stuff. So I was wondering how they're going to work his kind of time travel powers in, and how does that come about? So when they did it, I thought, oh yeah, that's sick. So I got quite excited about it. You know what I mean? But the game itself, it's funny when we did the first game, we were invited to not the first game, sorry, the first video we did, True Damage. We were actually invited to Paris to watch the championships and see the performance of like so I had Kiki Palmer, Duckworth, I can't remember everyone else. I can't remember everyone else, but it had 5 or 6 performers, who were voicing the characters in the actual video. So they were on stage, and then they had like a 3D kind of interactive thing, which had some of our character designs and ideas in it, and then it was interspliced with some of the video, and it was like this arena was packed. So I didn't know esports was a thing, and this arena was like
Oh.
as big as like the Super Bowl. It's crazy.
Yeah. I feel like you showed me that video because I had not seen it until I feel this is a while ago.
Yeah,
But
I
you
might have
showed
shown
me.
it to you. Yeah, but it's so, and then once all the kind of ceremony of the intro started, then you had, I don't know how big the teams are. I think it's like teams of 5, and they sit down, and you've got this big screen, and you're watching it. But I'm watching it, I'm not really understanding what's going on because it's like if you watch Street Fighter, you can very clearly see like
Yeah.
okay, 2 characters are fighting.
Who's winning and who's losing?
Yeah, once one goes down, the other person dies. Whereas with League of Legends, it feels so technical and complex and stuff. And I was trying to get so Patrick Morales, who's like one of the creative directors there, and he was explaining to me how the game works and stuff, right? But I think as it went on, I started to understand what was going on, like a little bit. Whereas the crowd, when someone does something on the screen, you hear the commentators and stuff, they were going absolutely nuts. Like someone just hit a home run or scored a goal. Like they were going crazy sort of thing. So the game itself, I know it's one of those like really super technical games and your timing has to be on point and you have to be super strategic and that. But, I barely play games on hard mode anymore. I think the last game I played on super hard mode was, it was the Jedi one.
Oh, Last Jedi? No, that was a film.
No,
Jedi The Fallen Order.
There you go.
yeah, I played it, but I did it by accident. So when I was playing it, I was like, it's so hard, and I was playing it, and then I was like, and I checked the difficulty settings. It was like on super hard mode, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to carry, because now I'm like, now my ego's involved. I'm like, well, I'm gonna keep it on hard mode. I'm gonna put it down. So, but yeah, League of Legends seems like a very, very, very technical game. It's got like lots of lore. There's lots of things behind the characters and stuff as well. So, like I said, I've engaged with some of that, and I know. I thought I forgot her name again. Sage or the
Mel.
yeah, Mel. I thought she was going to be a character called Senna because like she had the dreadlocks and that. So I thought, oh, is she going to become Senna? Like, you know. So when she had the powers, I was like, maybe she changes her names, but she's not Senna. Like she's someone who plays.
Right.
But
Yeah, because Mel was created for the show, right? I don't know
She's
why
now
that
a
just popped in.
character, I think. She's either gonna be a character, or because they released a new cinematic. We didn't
Oh,
get
okay,
enough
okay.
of Arcane. There's a new cinematic, and I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
yeah,
that
I've
she's gonna be a
seen
character.
it was done by Fortiche, right? The cinematic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I've seen. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it because I thought I'm
it's
like, oh, this
really
looks like
good.
Arcane. I'm like, no, let me stop because I didn't want any spoilers. So now I've seen it. Like I'm gonna
Go back
Yeah,
and
you
watch.
should watch it. You see,
Okay.
this is watching that cinematic made me kind of think. I don't know, this is conspiracy theory, but I think that the reason they didn't kind of, I don't know, spend more time is because they kind of almost wanted to leave people hungry. Because when I finished it, it's like having a very, I don't know, a gourmet meal. You're like, oh, it's gonna be like, I don't know, 6 courses, but they're so small. They're so like expertly crafted, but you're like, I kind of want McDonald's afterwards, or like more of that meal. You're like, oh God, did they do like something else? And you kind of keep on ordering. So I wonder if they just kind of wanted people to go to check out their games. Obviously, this is at the end of the day, it's still kind of like a marketing exercise for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So my guess conspiracy theory is that they this is by design. I honestly don't know how much of it is by design, but like it is
Some of
by
it.
design that there's some longing left that you're like, oh, I could really stay in this universe. I could really go and maybe play the game and spend on their in-game. I could get like the Jinx, but from Arcane, and she'll be with me for a bit longer. I don't know.
Okay, all right. It could be, could be. You know, there's always a commercial aspect
I will say, if
to
that
it.
is their commercial goal, then they need to bring out a different type of game because
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
getting
no,
me. I haven't played the game. Have zero interest in playing the game.
like Arcane, League of Legends, two very different
Yeah,
styles of thing to experience.
yeah.
well, that's the thing. That I think that's why they've done Welcome to Noxus. I think that's actually a campaign. So I think that is a part of the League of Legends. I don't know. At least
All
I
right,
haven't been
blended
looking
in.
into it enough. But I think it's like you can play a story there. I think.
Right. But I imagine at this
I think
stage
that's
there
what
is
it
some
looks
of
like.
the more crossover. And I feel like, as you mentioned, in the first season, so me, as I'll just class myself as the most ignorant of League of Legends. I think that I'm comfortable in saying that. So even like, because I remember when I first watched I watched the first season only because I heard about it on a podcast that I listened to, and it wasn't even it was a games podcast, but they were making other recommendations, and someone said Arcane, get to season 3 and that just changes everything. I was like, I don't know what this is, but the way you're talking about it, I need to check this out, and either you're right or you're wrong, and I'm gonna say in my head to some person I don't know you're wrong. So I watched it, like, this is fantastic, I'm watching this whole thing, and I had no idea the story, so literally everything was new. I've seen Jinx cosplays, I think that's about it that I would recognize. So I didn't need any knowledge of the game, of the lore. But in watching season 2, I started to feel like, oh, this, if I had played the game, I would know a bit more the context behind this, particularly like the Black Rose and all that. Sort of, I love Victor's arc, but then when the anomalies and everything, I was like, oh, this is where prior knowledge of the game lore would help me like fill in some of these gaps, and I never felt that at any point in season 1. So again, it's like the challenges of world building, and it's something to think about when you're telling, like, creating stories.
Another thing that really made it connect with the games is so you know when they're like raiding the building. I'm sorry, my names are things today. Nouns are not my strong suit today. Mel's mum.
Oh, and Bessa.
Yeah, when she's raiding, she's like gathered the artificial things and is raiding the thing.
Oh, right at the end.
Yeah, that whole scene is very League of Legends because for anyone listening, and Nigel, I guess, don't know how a game like this type of game works. It's like there's a team on one end and a team on the other, and then there's like these channels in the middle, and you essentially have to get like you're trying to overtake it. And so the way that was a terrible explanation, and you can probably tell I don't play for anyone that does play it. But the way that was like very much like what I've watched of the game, because you kind of got like the grunts as well, like some grunt type characters amongst the heroes, like battling, using their different powers. So that was like, yeah, and then they're like taking over a tower, I guess. So to me, I was like watching it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like now this is a League of Legends show.
Right.
Before it was like, oh, the cool characters and designs and stuff. And then obviously start of the season, you start to see like actual powers and like specialities, like hero skills. Like this person's very clearly this skill and this person very clearly has that skill. And then, yeah. And then at the end, we kind of get like actual like cinematic gameplay kind of type thing.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So yeah, there is that aspect to it, like the world building and how much to bring in until you nudge against that like impact on the story. All right, so there we've acknowledged some of the criticisms of it. Let's talk about some other aspects. I feel like with this sort of two-part, I guess the season 1 and season 2, we see like the characters. You know, as I was watching that, the character relationships like go another level. And I think when I touched on it, when I started watching it, I mentioned like, for me, like season 1 was like primary colors and then season 2 is like secondary colors. So like they become more complex, but you need the primary colors. You need that set up to have what we have in season 2. And like for you guys, was there any, I'm thinking like particular relationships, whether it's, because we see a lot of sort of revenge or kind of revenge adjacent moments. We see some like redemption movements as well. Was there any particular relationship that really like got you with the characters, that really struck you, like emotionally? I mean,
Vi and Jinx. I don't think I can ever not like their relationships continuously like changing, and like it's kind of, their relationship reminds me of like a blob, because they never quite fully break apart, and they always kind of like spring back together in some way, and they're always like influenced by each other. Like their bond is like so strong that it doesn't matter. Like even if they think they hate each other, they're still connected to each other. And then Jinx and the little girl. Aisha. And Aisha, oh my god, like the way that Jinx like learned from that, and like that really changed her in a way that nothing else could have. And it was just so sweet, like watching her interact and seeing how she cared, and then seeing how Vi saw how she cared. Very moving, very moving. But there was a lot of relationships in this that are like very touching. Like Mel and Mbasa, like their relationship of like completely disagreeing, but Mel at the end of it is like, she's still my mum. And like that, just their whole story together is just really, really intense. And then Vi and the gal.
Oh, Caitlin.
Yeah. Like that goes through some motions.
Yeah.
And then they're like, when they make up at the end, it's just like such a powerful
That's
scene.
a payoff. Yeah.
Like, and it just feels so out of like the rest of the show, if that makes sense. But like in a good way, because they're in the middle of like this war, essentially, and like it's that moment of like love and connection and seeing each other, and like they've just been through so much. They've both experienced so much trauma at that point, and like such a complicated relationship. Like Vi's sister has killed Caitlyn's mum. Like,
yeah, what do you do with that?
Yeah, and just how all of that is, and that complexity, and they just kind of fight, like it feels like they finally fully see each other and fully accept like each other without the chains of like family and like
Expectations as well.
like outside of like they just removed everything that's outside of them and it's just them two, just them. There's a few
There's
other,
loads,
but
yeah.
they're like probably the most standout ones.
Yeah. Where's Lisa?
Yeah, no, just it's been interesting to hear your perspective, Tazzy, as well. But yeah, I think I find that like in the first season, it almost like it feels like the violence throughout the season is ramped up, whereas in the second season, it almost feels like characters slowly all realize that you can't resolve their relationship problems with violence. You know, you see that obviously with the main two characters of Y and Jinx, you know, who have a quite epic battle set to a really great music video. You see that with the main two protagonists, Jace and Victor. You see that with Echo and Jinx. It's almost a lot of them kind of end up, I don't know, resolving things with talking almost. Like even though there's a lot
Yeah,
of
use your
epic, like
words.
oh yeah, or hugging. But some of my favorite things is there is a subtle indication of obviously, I mean, it's like a heavy topic, but like abuse within the families and stuff, or having abusive parents in general, and kind of
Yeah.
how tricky
Well,
that
and
might
Bessa is
be.
that, right?
Yeah, so I'm Bessa, but I also find Vise and Jinx is, I'm not gonna like blaspheme him. He's not hinted to be an abusive father at all, but he's hinted as someone who's quick to anger. So he's almost murders his best friend, or like, and then
Mm.
injures,
Like
right? And
Vanda.
then becomes, yeah, Vandra. Yeah, sorry, I should have said the name. So Vandra almost murders Silco, which starts the whole cycle of violence. Because they were very close. They're the ones who kind of like, let's overcome this, blisters and
They
bedrock.
had the vision.
Yeah, so and Vander is known to resolve a lot of things with violence. So I think he is quite a violent character. Obviously, he has that, I don't know, the beast. I don't remember the beast's name, but I think his name is
Warwick.
Warwick. Yeah, he obviously has that kind of within him, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde personality, right?
Mm.
And to me, I don't know, obviously, I think it's hinted. I don't think he said he was a bad father, but when they kind of see him, his that kind of angry side, and they have to resolve it with a hug, it almost felt like, they had to bring them back. And then he almost went to that, like, rehabilitation camp and had some therapy, which that
Yeah.
went a bit south. But yeah, it almost felt like that. It's like, a family counseling, but obviously in a fantasy setting, all of them being like, yeah, we'll have a bit of issues, let's work through them together. Victor is here to help. I mean, it's probably not great that they found that in a cult, but
Yeah.
it's a good start.
Problems on
But yeah,
problems.
that relationship I found very interesting because I come from a turbulent family too, so it's almost like you're like, oh yeah, that's a very interesting way to portray it for people who like come from this, and you're like, it's not ever perfect family dynamic, but you kind of, I don't know, it's not like you make, yeah, I guess you make it work, you do. I like the message of not resolving things with violence, or using words, and
Right.
you know, especially when Echo talks to Jinx, obviously in a very emotionally charged episode of, where she decides to take her life. When talks to Caitlyn, it's just a lot of it feels very heartfelt to me. It's like, yay, love wins. And obviously the bromance at the end, I found very sweet. They got together. Anyway, so yeah, what do you think, Wes?
Yeah, I think Jinx is a bit of an anomaly to me because sometimes I wonder if what she did, can you come back from that? I mean, she's like murdered
Yeah.
people. Like, in cold
Yeah.
That's yeah. So
I
that's why
find
I was worried about how they'd go with it, because that seems irredeemable, like what she did.
Yeah, like even from Vi's, I mean, from Vi's perspective, when she kind of killed her, I guess her adopted brothers, that's slightly different because she's a
Mm.
kid and she
Mm.
it was an accident the way they
Yeah.
died. But then there's other things that she did. So even when she said to Caitlyn, like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't know your mum was there," it's kind of like, all right, you didn't know my mum was there, but other people's mums
People
were
would,
there.
yeah.
So it's like, is that like a, I don't know. Can you just like excuse that away? Do you know what I mean? Because for me, I'm like,
Yeah.
Nah, it's like with that in I think of Civil War, like Iron Man, when he finds out the Winter Soldier killed
Oh
his
yeah,
parents.
yeah,
So he just went into a rage and he wanted him dead, sort of thing, which is understandable. But the redeeming thing about that is that the Winter Soldier wasn't in control of himself. So when you actually come to your senses and look at it objectively, it's like this person wasn't them. They weren't. You can see why Steve is trying to fight to kind of save his friend because he thinks he is
sure.
redeemable. Whereas with this, it's like, no, you know what you're doing. You've just chosen. All right, you've had your traumas, but you know what you're doing. So I felt like maybe that kind of tension between the mum, that tension between them two, felt like it was played out better with. Oh God, I always Mel. Mel, mum. I got it right for once. It felt like it was played out a lot better between them because it's like, mum, you're going too far, but you're still my mum, sort of thing. But another relationship I really liked, and again, it's just like time, right? I really liked Echo's relationship with Jinx in the alternate universe.
Oh yeah, that was a powerful
I was really
sequence.
getting, I was really getting into that. Like you didn't spend a lot of time with them because because at the beginning he's kind of like, listen, she's Jinx now, she's irredeemable, and he was saying to his sister, no, she's this, she's that. And I think him spending moments with an alternative version of her where
Yeah,
she
what could
didn't
have
go through
been.
what she went through, what it could have been and stuff, and it made him see her differently. It made him see something that even if that thing is long gone, it's kind of like it made him like, talk off the ledge, like literally talk off the ledge sort of thing. So I really liked that relationship with him. In fact, I really like Echo as a character, but I really liked
Yeah.
the
It's a
relationship
shame
he
we
had
didn't
with.
see more of Echo.
Right, and this is what I mean. It was like, I wanted him to, that relationship, and that could have even that kind of love that he seemed to have for her in that alternate universe. I feel like maybe that could have been played out more in the real world. And like, again, I can't remember the first season that well, so I might be speaking out of turn, right? But I feel like with that, if there was a glimpse of a possible romance and her becoming this person is the thing that broke his heart, which he's so gung-ho and like, she's changed, I don't want to know. Because again, in the first season, you see them have this fight on the bridge. And I think there's like a minute where he's about to kind of like give it a last blow and he's like, he hesitates sort of thing. That's when she blows up the bridge sort of thing. But I would have liked to have seen that more between them because I felt like something really nice was happening between them.
Yeah. There's one thing about that scene with Caitlyn and Jinx though, where she says about like I didn't know your mum was there, is that she even says, I don't think it would have made a difference,
Yeah.
but I didn't know. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Which makes it worse.
and I thought it was just so powerful. But I also think that like Jinx's redemption is like completely like different from other like villains in other shows, because she's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
like she's genuinely not all there in the head. She's everywhere else. But she's very aware of that she has voices in her head and she doesn't see things like clearly or the same way that other people do. But she's also like, she's kind of weighed up that like, I don't know, like to me, like
it gives up on
everyone
itself
else,
as well.
yeah, but as well, like everyone else is like, this side is the good side, or this side is the good side, this is the right way. Whereas she's like, I don't care if it's the right way or the wrong way, this is my way. Like, whereas everyone else is kind of on a high horse and like that they know the best way to deal with this really messed up situation. And like she doesn't pretend that she's got the best way. She's just like, I'm gonna do something about it.
No, I think that's a really I think that's a really fair point. And I guess maybe for me, it's like I question whether she can be redeemed because ultimately people know what their limits are in terms of forgiveness, right? So there's some things that, even in our own lives that someone has done, you're like, you know what, I will never forgive that. I don't know how you've done it. Whereas other people are like, no, this actually doesn't bother me and I can move past it. So for me with her, it's kind of like, I like it. She's a difficult one for me. Anytime a character does something there's always like a line that a character can cross. And sometimes and I'm like,
I want to just like put a thought out there of like, basically, I feel like Jinx gets to a point where she's not trying to be redeemable, and she thinks that she can't be redeemable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She kind of, it feels like she gives up on herself. She's like, and because she doesn't want anything that's coming to her, like she becomes, because she goes into hiding, sort of, she becomes a cult figure, like a like vision for the resistance against like Topside, but she doesn't want it. She doesn't, like, she rejects it. It's that she's just pushed into it, and it's only that moment where people are captured, and that's when we see like Warwick, and then she's like, okay, I'm the only one who can. These are the people that are, you know, they've all dyed their hair blue for me and everything. All right, now I have to do it. And then even after that, it's like when Aisha sacrifices herself in a similar, I feel there's like a parallel to when, well, yeah, kind of a parallel to when Jink or Powder kind of makes a sacrifice of others. But, and then she's like, okay, that sends her into another spiral, and she just like gives up, but it's other people around her that go, oh no, we're not going to give up on you. And that's what maybe keeps her from completely giving up. Maybe I'm not. Yeah, she's an interesting character, because I feel you on the irredeemable thing, because I thought they were going to go a different way with Jinx. I thought she was like full kind of villain, and like you're just going to have to take her out or at least try to. But then they went the redemption arc.
And I think it's like the redeemable thing, but then when you look at it on the flip side, the other where she's from, the underground city, like
Zorn,
that's right. So they seem to hail her as a hero, right? They seem to see
the
freedom fighter. So like to Piltover, she's like kind of a terrorist and a terrible person, but to them, she's like a hero. And so it did make me think like maybe that is the only thing that made me think, okay, maybe there's something in the way these people feel like they've suffered or they have suffered, that the end justifies the means, right? And she's the person to kind of like lead them and take them out, because ultimately, like that little girl that kind of fell in love with her, she's not looking at Jinx as the Jinx or the person who's made mistakes and stuff. She's looking at us, oh, I really love you, and you know what I mean? And I love you so much, I'm going to sacrifice my life for you to save you, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And because really, so Jinx didn't like attack innocent people as well when she set that off. She attacks the overruling government that treats the
oppressors.
Like that's also a thing. And like you said, like she's seen as a terrorist on the top side, but that's because the top side are the oppressors. Like they're the ones that get to live in like the cushy, lovely life, while Zoe is like left to be poisoned by their waste.
Yeah, literally poisoned. Yeah.
And like they're not allowed like on the top side. Like there's so much restrictions. Like they're just left to suffer and like this world of corruption and violence and crime because they've been like oppressed. So it's not like Jinx still like didn't. It'd be different if Jinx like, I don't know, fired that rocket at a school or a hospital or something.
The symbolism is different with
she fired it directly at the government that has caused all the suffering with a military rule as well.
I guess there was some good people in that room as well, so it's like it kind of it's really interesting because I keep talking about Last of Us is like one of my favorite game series of all time. The second one, I don't want to do any spoilers, but the second one, it gives you another perspective. So you're really, you're really upset about what happens to certain characters in the second one, and you're justifiably so. But when you see it from the other side, when you see it from the other side, you're like, yo, they were doing exactly the same thing. Other people's
like, I've been killing someone's dog.
Yeah.
You made me kill someone's dog.
How far does this vengeance go?
Yeah.
The dog who tried to attack her, but
I know, but I broke my heart. I didn't want to. I was like, no.
Yeah.
It made me.
I think it's just a case of like if Jinx is irredeemable, then there's definitely people in that room that were in that room that are equally irredeemable. Like, it's not that like Jinx is more of a villain than the others. Like, she's just the one that's been brushed with the villain.
I mean, everyone there has kind of got blood on their hands, right? Because Jace
Yeah.
killed a child, didn't he? He caused a lot of child death.
Mm.
Jace.
Yeah, tricky tree. Yeah, it's a tricky situation.
And then, obviously Vander caused a lot of deaths.
Yeah.
Vi caused a lot of deaths. We see that when they used poison gas. So did Caitlyn by releasing poison gas. That like poisons the whole of Zone.
The whole like the military like Caitlyn's military family killed Vi and Jinx's parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Unjustly, like so. It's
we do see a lot of that cycle of violence just going, and it's like, what does it take to break that cycle? I think, like you said, Liza, sort of people figuring out that okay, it can't be a violent solution.
And I feel like Jinx only gets brushed with the villain is because she's a bit crazy. Like, if she was just because everyone else like justifies their means, that they're fine, but because she's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do it, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I did this thing. Do what you will.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I'm not justifying her violence. I'm just
just giving that perspective.
She's redeemed now.
So there's another sort of character pair I wanted to come back to as we look to the end of the series, or leading up to the end, is like Victor and Jace, because speaking of like justifying actions, Victor was an interesting one. So his arc was definitely the going into the there's some world building stuff where if I played the game this would maybe make more sense, or just like got into lore. But I liked what it was saying, and so he comes like damaged. He goes into the Arcane, sort of cocooned, and then he comes out sort of new body, and then he goes on this, I don't know, this revival kind of like cult figure arc where he's essentially saying like, to make things perfect, I just need to take over everyone, basically, just like the hive mind I mentioned earlier. And Jace, when he goes off on his day, and we do get like a flashback, or here's what happened when he was away, when he comes back, because he comes back, it's like, I must kill Victor and I will kill anyone that stands in the way, and you're kind of like, what happened to you? And then you realize, so he's seen what will happen on this path. But yeah, and so then the story goes into this whole, like, I guess it focus, because it kind of takes the focus then away from, like I said, we don't see much of Zorn and Piltover. We see bits, but not like a major amount. And then to a certain extent, sort of Vi and Jinx get sidelined, and it's leading up to this essentially Age of Ultron story arc. It's this perfect being is going to make everything perfect. How did you feel at the end? Because like Wes, you mentioned, different parts and then pulling everything together. Do you feel they pulled everything together by the end in terms of like Victor's quest for perfection and the impact that had on all the other characters? Because everything kind of led to that. Did that work for you?
I think they did tie everything together. I definitely think that they did. Like, it felt like an end, and we don't know if Victor and Jace died or whatever, isn't that? But I guess for me, it's just how quickly it wrapped up. I think that's my issue with it. Like, again, when you factor in schedules and what the intent was versus what the reality is, what you can actually do, like, just from a production perspective. And again, I don't know, what happened. Maybe this was the intention all along and it just is pacing. But I just know, just based on how the first one went, I'm just like, these are the same people that made the second one. They've just said everything, every single.
So they know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing to the point that they can actually have someone can turn around and say, right, I know you're going to have 3 more seasons, but we're not doing that anymore. And they can like turn it around, right? And make it feel like it's finished. It's just, for me, I'm just like, this is done now, because I didn't feel like I got to understand what the Arcane actually is and why it can do that with space and time and all this kind of stuff. Like I just didn't, it's like you had glimpses of stories. So again, as an example with Echo and Jinx, that story, that felt to me like we were supposed to spend a bit more time in that place, right? Like even a couple of years or something. I don't know. Like it just felt like that was supposed to be more time, and it wasn't given, to the creators and to us as like the consumers. So that's what I felt. But like, if you ask me, does it feel like it ended? I guess maybe for me, I'm like, I really want another season. I really want to know what they're going to do.
I felt that, yeah.
But having said all that as well, I think they're developing their own IP, like a new series or a movie, which I'm really excited for. I can't remember what it's called, but it's got like they put some poster art out, and it's a really cool like image of a.
It's Fortiche.
Fortiche, yeah. I can't remember what it is. I'd have to search it, but I'm excited for that as well. So it's kind of like, if they can command the same sorts of budgets that they were for like Riot, because again they're saying it's like 250 million, so that's like 13 million per episode or something like that, right? If they can command that sort of budget for their own IPs and stuff, it'll be really interesting to see what they do, because they've gone from like doing like incredible 2D work to 3D as well. In fact, the studio has a very 2D sensibility, so even when you're watching Arcane, which is 3D and painterly, and they're using the 3D technology, it does every frame. It feels like a drawing. It feels like,
Yeah, no, for sure.
Very, very, very deliberately composed, and it's not just like relying on what 3D can do well, where you don't have to worry about angles and stuff. But they're like, very kind of deliberate with their angles and stuff. So
because it was Variety that reported it cost $250 million to make and market Arcane's 2 seasons, so 18 episodes, which would make it the most expensive animated series of all time. And there was the moment where they sort of had to defend it all. It felt like a bit of a defense, where Riot co-founder and chief product officer Mark Merrill said anyone complaining about the development budget being high is actually complaining about us paying talent and complaining about us putting art first. Arcane is a great thing for every person working in animation, and it helps point towards the value of higher budgets. And I like that. I feel, because I'm talking to 2 people who know the cost of animation. It is expensive from what I understand, and to do it properly, it just requires a lot of resources. And if nothing else, I feel like they gave this team to do the resources to do the best they could do, and we got this amazing series from it. This piece of art.
100%, and I think it being expensive, I don't think there's anything wrong with it personally. I think to myself, like, it shows on the screen. Like they spend that kind of money, and it's like it didn't show on the screen. It's like, what did you waste your money on exactly? Like, but it really does show they've spent years developing the technology and stuff, and I think it elevates the industry. Actually, I think it makes, anytime stuff like this comes out, what you don't want is for people to just copy what someone has done verbatim. So there have been times where we've had pictures where probably like, just, can you make it look like Spider-Verse? And we're like, no. And
people come to you and
like sometimes maybe like we can always push back and stuff, but
sure,
it's it's always like there's a positive in it, in that, like, right, these things are referencing, like, these animations are changing how people who don't really see animation as valuable, they're changing their mindset and stuff. So you would get stuff like, can you make it more like Arcane, or can you do this and that? And our standpoint is like, well, no, but even if we could, would you want us to? Like we want to try and, I guess for us, it's about, Brad Bird said this about the success of like animated films. Like, I think he was talking about Iron Giant. And he said people want to replicate the thing or the product rather than replicate the environment that created the product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's much more interesting to me as like for the studio to create an environment that can create these great products rather than copy the end result of what someone else has done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because and the best, quote unquote, the best will look different in different environments, and it's about what, for your collection of people, what's the best there? What do they want to do? Not, like you said, the end result of someone else's.
Yeah, exactly, and it's fun for us to try and do something new. There's no interest in. There's sometimes you want to pastiche something and it makes sense, but there's no interest. And I'm not the only animator in the room, but there's no, or artist even. There's no real interest in doing or trying to just replicate something that someone else has done, because they've done it, and I have fun looking at what they've done, and I'm excited to see where their story will go. I want to have my own thing. I don't know what that is yet, but I want to have, well, this is what I do, and people to engage with it in that way. And again, when you're like starting out and learning and stuff, there's nothing wrong with copying and being inspired and stuff, but you always want to get to that point where you're like, you know what, I've had all my inspirations. I've gone through my Ghibli era. I've gone through my Genndy Tartakovsky era. What is Wesley like? What does his work look like? Do you know what I mean? I admire that studio, man. I think they're incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame that they felt like they've had to justify the spend, because for me,
you can see it. What are you talking about?
It's always like that with animation. You have to, I don't know, people just don't understand how much it costs, because I think people think that there's an animate button.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's right next to the make video game button.
I love those two buttons. Just press them all day.
2 buttons away from the make music button.
Yeah.
Unfortunately now there is actually a make music button, which is a shame, but so we've talked about characters, so I want to do like themes, although I will say I will agree with like Tazziii, the whole Vi and Caitlin, that relationship, I love seeing that develop from the beginning, and just how organic that felt to me, and the ups and downs, and Caitlin as a character. Maybe for me, I just like seeing, because I did not, what I saw from Caitlin in season 2, I wouldn't have expected from seeing her in season 1, and I love that transformation. And she goes through trauma, she loses her mum in a terrible way, and then she kind of goes off the deep end and sort of aligns herself with Elon Musk. So I mean Ambessa, who takes over, and then sort of has to go through all of that. But then she comes off the other side. And I just really like seeing her growth, and the way she owns who she is, and then still has to learn from, like, I wouldn't even say mistakes. It's just a bad situation that she goes through.
There's something also really interesting about Vi and Caitlin in season 2, is that Vi is very like externally tough looking. She's the more muscular one. She's a bit more rough around the edges.
Yeah, street smart.
Yeah. And then Caitlin's the one that looks a bit more like soft.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, prim and proper, but their like
that's
emotional side are completely opposite. Like Vi is very soft emotionally, like she's very like compassionate and caring, and she's the first one to like break down crying. So she's like the more like soft, compassionate one.
And she has the line where she said like, "Don't change on me," or "Don't change that." That was heartbreaking, because the next episode she's like, "Oh, I'm a different person now."
Yeah.
Sorry
and
about that.
Caitlin's like the very like emotionally like tough and stubborn, and like so they're like opposites to their externals, which is really interesting, especially in an animation, because that's purposeful. That's not just what the person looks like. That's purposeful, that you've made, even like how they carry themselves. Yeah.
No, for sure. So I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed everyone, seeing everyone, but her, just like, I really that really resonated with me. So I was happy that they got a positive ending, because not everyone did in that show. All right, takeaways, themes, because we always like doing themes. We talked about the redemption, because we see Jinx go on that. It felt like hasty at times, but it depends how much of a critical eye you want to put in it. But she goes on this like redemption arc, and it's like, you have the story and you develop characters, and similar to like, the animation is not wasteful. Like or when done well, characters shouldn't be wasteful. Everyone's there for a purpose, and like Aisha is there to help that redemption arc, where someone who seems like she's too far gone can be brought back. So we see her as like the hero figure, and eventually she kind of owns it. See it from other characters dealing with loss, a lot of loss in both seasons, most of it previous. So we see like Vi and Jinx really dealing with the loss of parents, but then also as a result of Powder, the loss of like close friends. Mel dealing with like the loss of like a brother. We don't see it, but they speak about it. Caitlin is the one we kind of see, and we see her move through those stages of of grief in real time, or at least real time to the show. And then I mentioned Victor, who yeah, there was so because Victor's a character who's like he has these issues with like his self-perception of like imperfection, self-perception of imperfection. Yeah, that makes sense. Self-perfection of imperfection. And he's like going on this journey to remove the imperfections. So he just really dives into that until at the end, and he's reminded that the imperfections of humanity are what make it so special. And he had this the quote at the end, like, which for me, like I I almost stood up and just applauded. I don't know, because it resonated with what I was, some things I was feeling at the time. So at the very end, when you know the final form of Victor, like Jace catches up with him and understands what this is all about and understands the impact like across timelines that Victor has had on Jace to give him the idea to go into Hextech and to eventually stop himself. And he has the line like, "There's no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit." And that just like just slapped me across the face. You know that meme of I think it's from Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio, just like just pointed. That was me. I was like that I need
Yeah.
to tattoo that and just like internalize that so much. That's like one of my favorite lines from just any media. Love that always comes back to my mind. Just what it means for his journey, because he really feels like I need to make this perfect, and that means I need to go this far, and that means everyone's got to suffer. And he realizes that we're human. And I feel in not, I mean, we could do a whole, and we have done episodes on AI, but just I feel where we as a society and everything are culturally are at risk of forgetting that it's not just the end product, it is the process. And the process is imperfect. It takes time. It costs time, money, just mistakes and like rubbish versions to get to the well that is it, that is the value. And I really enjoyed his, I mean, I didn't enjoy all of it because he was he went off the deep end, but yeah, but just where he got to in terms of like realizing that that imperfection is the value, is about the journey basically, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so any, I don't know, yeah, any thoughts, or even like favorite episodes, favorite quotes that stood out? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things we can talk about. So again, fantastic series, but I don't know what
Yeah.
resonated and if there's anything that did stand out, or favorite episodes.
There was like the moment, this is right in the beginning, where Jinx is really struggling with Silco's death, and she like goes to the hideout thing. And actually there's two moments, I'm kind of blurring them. So there's one where, and the other lady with the arm, the mechanical arm.
Oh, Silvika?
Yeah, Savika.
Yeah,
And like, because Jinx has just kind of like been hanging out in Silco's office,
Yeah.
and then they have like their like discussion about him, and I thought that was just like a really beautiful moment of them like remembering, and they were kind of like remembering like the things, like his mannerisms, I guess, like his habits and mannerisms. And that was like a really, anyone that's sort of like been through grief, those are the things that really help you like deal with that grief, is like just remember, it's not remembering like the big dramatic things that happened, it's the little
things,
things that makes them them. And then there's another moment where she goes back to the office and she's like in the chair and she's like talking to him like for answers, but he's not there, and she's just like really struggling with that moment. I thought that was quite
Liza.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, yeah, just so nice remembering. And I was like, I just want to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear that, yeah, I think it's just like a whole bunch of moments that you remember that comes to mind. You know, it's obviously the tender relationships and things like that. I think I really I love Stromae before I even. Actually, I loved quite a few. Music has been a huge thing in this season. There's a lot of my favorite artists featured in it. There was Ashniko, who's made, I actually don't know how to pronounce her name properly, but I went to her concert, and it was like a small concert in Scotland. And
Oh, cool.
when I saw her, I was like, oh my God, she's like, her hair is long and blue. I was like, her whole vibe is just like Jinx, you know? And that was before the second season came out. And then I saw that she did the Jinx's song. I was like, it's amazing. And it's a fun song as well. But it was Stromae is the one who wrote the French song, the one that Echo and Powder are dancing to. And it's just such a beautiful song. You can just listen to it on repeat. And I think it's one of my favorite things, one of my kind of favorite things to come out as well, that I'm just, you can take away and you listen and you can watch. But yeah, anything kind of artistic. It's very hard to remember the quotes, but the one that you have said, "There's no price of perfection, only end to pursuit," is also very much resonates with me as well, because I'm a big perfectionist. I actually just finished the book. Finally, it was last
Ah,
week,
cool.
because it talked
And that,
last time.
yeah.
It's 200 pages, which is great, of hand drawn,
Nice. Well done.
yeah, comic. But that kind of felt, I kind of felt like Victor, because it took such a long time. And I mean, I am very glad the way it turned out, but at the same time, you feel like, oh, I could have probably made myself suffer a little bit less for it. I hope the fans would like it, but yeah, maybe it didn't need all 200 pages. So yeah, don't like, kick yourself adding, a few pages to your to 38, just as long
Yeah,
as it's
yeah,
not like
yeah. I know. It's just
several
yeah,
hundred.
yeah. It's
But
like
yeah.
tiny in comparison.
So yeah, looking forward to next final book, which is going to be 600, and then it'll be like desolate
We only
environment and
go up.
sitting
Yeah.
like Victor,
Yeah.
just crying over it. Anyway, yeah.
How about yourself, Wes?
Um, it's hard to say, man, because there's so
I
much.
know it is a difficult
Yeah,
question,
it's
or
one of those.
anything we maybe not have mentioned.
Yeah, there's so much visual kind of stimulation from this series, and so many cool things. Like I said, I really love Echo, and I think I've got a bit of an attachment to that character just because of I've had to do some alternate designs of him for the True Damage video. Well, they weren't my designs, but I just designed them for animation, like just refined what was going to animation. I think I can't think of moments, but I like some of the like the characters and their presence and stuff, and how like Selvika, for instance, how she just seemed like a goon in the first one, like some sort of
Yeah,
like fired muscle, but in this one she had a bit of a sensitive side to her, and even like what you were talking about with the mourning and the passing of Silco.
Silco.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like even that, like when you have someone that's you perceive as bad, or they're just a goon, or they're just this thing, but then they also have a heart, and as much as maybe Silco might have got on her nerves, like it looks like she genuinely misses him and misses his presence. So I think that's a good thing about it. I really like um Bessa.
Ambessa. Yeah,
In fact, I think this is there's a lot of things that's happening with media at the moment where it's like, again, they I think what's her name, she's in that film with Tom Cruise, Live, Die and Repeat.
Oh, Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt. So she was
Mm.
talking about how like she's getting fed up with scripts where it's kind of like, oh, a strong woman does this sort of thing. It's like, oh, for God's sakes, like what's going on, sort of thing. But I think the way that they write women in this, and the way they make them feel believable, like, so all of their powers, their combat, their efficiency, like it feels believable and not just kind of tacked on and like saying, oh, these are strong women just for the sake of it being strong women. They actually are quite
They're
powerful.
people,
Yeah, they're people, exactly. And
all
so
flawed people.
right, and it never is at the forefront. It's never at the forefront in the marketing and stuff. It just is what it is, and you accept it. And I love the way they actually do portray women in this, because they do play a massive role in this, like more than
Mm.
you could say, like the men. Like there's a lot of like strong female leads in this and that, but it's not like a parody of what people think a strong woman should be. Do you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that is really successfulness. Not one person have I heard speaking about any sort of kind of talking points that could be considered to be, for lack of a better word, woke or whatever it is. In that,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
DEI and
yeah, it
yeah.
stands. It stands, and I think it's really, really good, good writing. And I like the fact that I can root for these characters and their gender or their race, and and I get it. Like having visibility on these things. I mean, I'm Black Caribbean, so I understand it. But I think doing it in a responsible way, and doing it in a way that, like, we're not putting our kind of gender or race first, but actually like putting the characters first, who just happen
Mm.
to be women or who just happen to be black and stuff. So I really like the way they deal with the characters in this. I really
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I didn't even fully recognize. I guess to your point about it's just done in such a natural way, and they're all good characters.
yeah, it just doesn't occur to
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
and then there's a range as well. I felt similar when watching like Black Panther, the first one at least, where you don't always see sort of black people in certain ways, but then you had a spectrum, like male and female. You had sort of powerful king, you had like the villain, but also you understood the villain, and you, in my case, even like sympathize with the villain. You had the women, you had in different roles, you just had that right, and that's the thing with stereotypes. You can lock an other into like this is all they look like, this is all they act like, and it's like the people, we're all humans, we've all got the good and bad in different quantities, and you can write that. So when you write the characters and they're real people, it's just interesting to watch their journey. Where and then Bessa is fantastic. She's like the villain who you can relate to because she's a parent, and yeah, I feel sort of you can recognize some of that. Not necessarily by parents, well, sort of, kind of, but parents in general, you can recognize that. Just I know what's best for you, and this is what we're gonna do. I'm doing it for the family, and I don't really care about your thoughts. I get that. So
You can relate to it, sure, yeah.
you can relate to it. So no, I appreciate that. So yeah, no, I think for me, there's so much. Obviously, we could spend ages and ages speaking about it. I'm definitely going to rewatch it. I think in a selfish way, I feel because, like I said, maybe not the absolute masterpiece that the first one is. It just shows me that everyone's human, on the whole perfection thing. So maybe I don't feel as bad when I do things and I'm like, oh, maybe that could have been better. It's like everyone, if they can go through something like that, then okay, maybe it's not so bad.
I mean, to be fair, like if there wasn't a first season, then this would have been the masterpiece, right? It's like
you know what? That's a fair point. So high. That's a fair point.
Like,
that is a fair point.
I mean, at the end of the day, I like to take these things and look at it as a series as a whole, and as a whole,
yeah,
the whole thing I feel like is a masterpiece. So even with the the pacing's a bit weird, and I wish this was longer and stuff, I still love it, and I'll still watch it again. And
and going back to my first comment, just like I hope that the ultimate takeaway from this isn't this, the pacing and it wasn't as good. It was fantastic. It's fantastic. And for me, just that, like, learning from both in different perspectives, and just the thing I'll take away, like, even for my own work, is just that character relationships and the way they do that in a meaningful, engaging way. I really enjoy that, and it's made me think about how I do character relationships that mean something and have an impact. So a lot to learn, and when I rewatch it, I'm sure I'll learn more. But that's our very deep dive into Arcane season 2, and just talking about the whole Arcane storyline. Let us know what you think. There's lots more in there. Let us know what you think. You can always give us feedback in our Discord, email, social media. But that's it for the deep dive. Before we wrap up, Tazziii, let's just check in with our guests and find out what they're up to.
We'd love to know any like projects or anything that you want to shout out about coming up, and also where to find you online. So we'll start with Liza.
Well, I just finished my second book, so of course I'd love to promote that. So it's Memes and Thieves, The Council of Ferrets. God, it's coming out. I think it's coming out early next year, so it's just been submitted to my editor. And it's the second in the series of graphic novels. The first one is Memes and Thieves, Ferrets from Planet Ferretonia. It's for middle grade, so around 7 to 13 years old, but obviously not limited. I think grown-ups will find it really fun too. And you can find me online on Instagram as my main platform. It's Siberian Lizard on Instagram. On X or slash Twitter, I'm also Siberian Lizard. On TikTok, I'm Siberian_Lizard. It was taken, unfortunately. So whoever took Siberian Lizard could have been in trouble with me later. Uh, and I think that's all for the social medias. Oh, yeah, I'm on Webtoon as well, Siberian Lizard as well. Yeah, and thank you guys so much for having me. It's been great chatting to you both, and great to meet you all as well. And thank you for letting me talk about one of my favorite series ever.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We'll make sure to add links to the show notes. Wes, what about yourself?
So I'm currently covering for Tim McCourt, who's also like a founder and partner at the Line Animation as ECD. So I won't be doing any kind of directing for myself for the next maybe 4 or 5 months, which I kind of welcome because I'm a little bit, I haven't stopped directing. I hadn't stopped directing for about 12 years or something. So it's good to kind of get that break and use a different side of my brain, right? But yeah, we're working on stuff that I can't talk about, unfortunately, but we do have a couple of projects which I think will be dropping April, like mid-April, early April and stuff. So quite exciting. Like the studio's actually putting out some work that, I'm just like super impressed. Like everyone's just like really growing and like they just keep plussing every project that comes out and all the new learnings that we've got. We've got our entertainment department, which is up and running now. So we have a couple of things in development for that, which I can't talk about, but I can say it's a long form or longer form. We're also developing my own thing, which we announced the Mighty Grand Piton as a feature length movie. So that's kind of its trials and tribulations, but that's being worked on in the background. And then you can see our work at the Line Animation Instagram, and my personal Instagram is a Libra Bear. So I'm wearing like a Superman t-shirt in the thumbnail. So yeah, that's it. And thank you for having me, by the way. It was like a lot of fun to kind of chop it up and talk about this stuff and see you guys' perspectives on this show. I've come away with like, actually Jinx is redeemable. So yeah.
If it ever went to trial, Tazziii would be there, just like objection. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hire me.
To redeem a character like her, I think you just drop a bar low for everyone else. It's like just put blood on everyone's hands.
Yeah. That's cool. No, that's good to hear. I appreciate people spending time with us and giving like your expertise, because you guys know how this stuff is made, so you can give that insight. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. For those, especially if you made it to the end, if you enjoyed this episode of Story X Story, definitely make sure you subscribe so you can hear more interesting conversations like the one you've just listened to. Also consider giving us a 5-star rating and review, because that helps us reach new listeners and fans of story discussion. We're also story creators. We have a new manga. You can check it out, myamada.com. It's Origins Against All Odds. If you missed the launch event, catch us on YouTube. We'll put up some highlights and like the roundtable discussion as well. Follow us on Twitch, where we do our Studio 77 stuff, different shows, playing games. Join the Discord as well, so you can get a heads up as we make changes there, and you can find out more about what's happening in the My Matter universe. Get involved in the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign, either the photos, because we're doing the photo shoots now at time of recording, or the events that are happening over the year. Come see us at Comic-Con, places like that. And yeah, looklikeagamer.com. Excited to put that together and continue talking about diversity, if maybe not as many people are doing so as in 2020. When did we start? It's 2022. And as for the podcast, we release new episodes on Thursdays that include creator interviews, video game discussions, and deep dives into stories across pop culture, like this one. So you can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@mymatter.com, and our website with links to subscribe is mymatter.com/storyxstory. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe. And remember, if your magical server room has problems, try turning off the runes and then turning them back on again. That usually works. So take care, everyone.